everybody, and welcome back to another Nextlander podcast. Here we go. Is this, are we in episode 100-ish?
I think we are.
Is this the 100? Your beautiful Nextlander podcast. You're 100 and doing great. And
don't look a day over 98.
Technically, it was last week.
We don't do that around here. We don't acknowledge episode zeros around here.
Hey, episode 0 is basically like the day you're born. You're not 1 year old yet. It's the span between 0 and 1, right? So it's like it's the announcement. Hey, we've had a podcast, and then you celebrate the first birthday, and so on and so forth. You know.
This podcast is a centenarian, then? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, congratulations.
Okay. Hot damn.
This podcast will never retire, and also, sorry, podcast, there's no Social Security for you. Naturally. Congratulations to everybody who's been here for, 100, or let's even say 100 plus episodes. Thank you very much for hanging out.
Is that what you do when someone has been listening to a podcast for a long time? You congratulate them?
Yeah, well, I say thank you, and congratulations, and thank you for listening. It's been fantastic, a hell of a ride. This was our first podcasting endeavor, and we really weren't sure how it would all go.
We weren't sure it was going to take.
Just sat there for like 15 years watching the podcast world pass us by, and finally, it's time to take the leap.
What if
people seem to be doing well with this thing?
What if we took a video game and talked about it, and sometimes got stuff right, and sometimes got it wrong, and basically just kind of rapped about stuff for a while, and here we are.
One thing I've learned about podcasts is the first time you get something wrong, that's it. You're done. You're out.
Immediately they take away your podcasting microphone.
Sticklers for accuracy.
That's right. Can't get anything wrong. Brad Shoemaker, Alex Navarro.
Happy 100.
Happy 100. Happy 100.
Celebrating with a La Croix, I see.
Yes.
That's
Only
right.
the finest peach pear seltzer for me.
Wow. Really, really don't go too bananas here. We still have a podcast to do, okay?
Do they make a banana La Croix?
I bet they do. I've never seen it, but I bet they do.
I don't think they do.
Not yet.
In fact, I have immediately landed on a change.org petition.
Oh, no.
Demanding a banana flavor. This petition had 10 supporters.
Okay. Was one of the usernames like Banana Man? You remember Banana Man?
I do.
Banana Man!
Well, I watched a lot of Danger Mouse as a child, so yes, I remember Banana Man fairly vividly.
Yeah, not to date ourselves, but
no, we do that every single week, man. We might as well keep this rolling.
Yes.
Banana Man.
Yeah, he's got the globe logo, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, look, he's no Count Duckula, but he was fine.
Nobody is.
No.
Who do you think owns those rights? Think they're on the auctioning
somebody
block?
British.
Danger Mouse?
Yeah, who's got Danger Mouse, Count Duckula, Banana Man?
Well, so they did a Danger Mouse reboot some years ago on British television.
Okay.
They did a cartoon reboot, so I assume it's whatever channel was running that owns. I mean, it was Cosgrove or something was the animation studio that made those.
It sounds very English to me, but sure.
Yeah.
Who can reproduce the Danger Mouse theme on command?
He's amazing.
He's the greatest.
He's fantastic. He's whenever there is danger, he'll be there. Whenever there's trouble,
Danger Mouse.
Danger Mouse.
Danger Mouse.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was pretty good, but it's no Count Duckula theme. Let me tell you right now, that shit was funky as hell.
Count Duckula was kind of funky.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a vampire duck. Who drank vegetable
mostly.
juice? Or like was into vegetables.
You see, he was resurrected using ketchup accidentally. That's why it all went bad.
Oh.
Yeah. And then he went on adventures.
That's,
Dude, if I had to subsist entirely on ketchup, I would steak myself.
Ketchup's not that bad.
I don't mind ketchup.
I mean, I wouldn't want to eat it all the time, but
ketchup is no good.
How about mustard?
I mean, I don't hate ketchup. I just avoid it.
Oh man.
all right.
I'm not
mustard. Mustard I will take in all of its forms.
Yeah, I'll fuck up a mustard anytime.
I have segued kind of away from ketchup, but more into mustards. I will say I've moved.
Well, there is a greater variety there.
Yeah, and hot sauces. I guess I've kind of replaced ketchups with hot sauces on a lot of foods. Like I was never a big ketchup on eggs person, but I'll put some hot sauce on some eggs.
Mhm.
And on hot dogs and sausages, I will put hot sauce where maybe once I put ketchup. So,
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
I will say was the classic American yellow mustard. Is that like the French's? Is that the
Yeah,
brand?
like is that a deli mustard? That's a yellow, and then a deli's kind of seedier, right? Like a
Yeah, it's
kind
like
of-
the slightly browner,
Yeah.
sometimes slightly thicker.
yeah.
kind of-
French's sounds right.
I kind of avoid the classic yellow on anything but hot dogs and hamburgers generally.
Sure.
It's where that belongs.
Yeah, it's like barbecue.
But-
It's like a barbecue picnic ketchup or mustard.
I will drink a jar of Grey Poupon.
Whoa.
I don't want you to. I'm not going to make you do that.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying okay. I won't actually,
Okay.
What was
but I
the
love that stuff.
What was the point of the Grey Poupon ads? Was it like fancy people use the Grey Poupon, or
I have thought long and hard about that situation.
Okay, yeah.
Because remember the fake scandal around Obama eating fancy brown mustard.
No, I that must have been in a part
that
of
was
my brain. I had
Somewhere
to
in the
let
middle of
go.
the tan suit scandal. I can't
It was,
remember.
it was like early Obama era when cable news was just desperate to find anything to lambaste him for, and they got mad that he was not eating the classic American mustard.
Was that the French's? He was having like a
Right.
Okay.
I don't know if it was Grey Poupon specifically. It was some kind of brown mustard
Okay.
that he.
Oh, you mean the mustard they serve in every goddamn delicatessen on the goddamn planet?
So the reason I've been thinking about that, A, I've been eating a lot of Grey Poupon, but B, it has to be those commercials, right? It has to be those 80s commercials of people in limousines eating Grey Poupon, which you can get at any American grocery store for $4.
It's literally cheaper than most of the other mustards on the shelf.
Like, it's everywhere and it's cheap, but I guarantee you a bunch of people internalized those fucking commercials
yeah,
showing people in limousines and Rolls Royces eating that mustard,
and think it's
creating
fancy
a brand
mustard.
image, and got genuinely mad about it.
I wonder if that ad house was like, "Hey, we have this brand name. It sounds too fancy for Americans. Let's lean into it." I don't even know if it is not American. Is it? It could be an American brand. I don't even know. But like, let's lean into this thing because we're not going to muscle our way into the French's of the world or whatever. Who else is doing mustard? Ad agency struck gold. They killed it. And then a bunch of fancy people, or would-be fancy people, started putting Grey Poupon on stuff.
So, Grey Poupon, just to give you the very brief history,
Please
because this
do.
is what you come to this podcast for.
100 and going strong, folks.
It is a French origin.
Okay.
It was made
Dijon.
it is literally made in Dijon, France.
Okay, I love a Dijon mustard.
Yes.
But
bought by Kraft Foods in the 1970s.
yep, that's what I was waiting to get to.
Okay.
Yes.
It is owned by Kraft Heinz, makers of A1 sauce and Miracle Whip.
Love
Prior
it.
And Velveeta.
Okay, but prior to being bought by Kraft, it existed since 1866.
Wow.
Wow. Okay.
That's
Oscar Mayer. They own Oscar.
Kraft. I think Kraft also makes like missiles and stuff. Kraft kind of owns everything.
Well, yeah,
Kraft,
mustard missiles.
I've been called worse. Kraft is huge.
Yes,
Oh, you know,
there are
there-
10
well, there
companies
are-
in the world.
Yeah,
They're
there
one
are
of
8
them.
companies.
Yeah.
Something. Yes.
Yeah, Kraft is like probably owns Boeing in some way, and they're like, the cheese business is down, but man, are we selling missiles?
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the coming corpo wars, if we have to pick a benefactor with whom to align,
Kraft.
Kraft Heinz, if you're listening, if you want to pick up a podcast on the cheap, let us know.
I want to be paid. I want my chips or my creds to come individually wrapped in a little bit of cellophane when I get it. To be like, here are your 5 creds today.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, look at this one.
I would rather join Jell-O and Corn Nuts in the Kraft Heinz family than I would, let's say, Lockheed Martin.
It's not going to be a choice. They'll buy Lockheed Martin. You'll be okay.
Yeah.
And Lockheed Martin are they the top of their pun
It's
intended
like
food
them
chain?
and Raytheon, I think.
I thought somebody owned Lockheed Martin. Is it Grumman Lockheed Martin? Or are they like? Did they swallow each
what is
other?
it? Northrop Grumman, I believe, is the one you're thinking of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right? But I believe that is a separate company.
Okay.
How did we get from mustard to this? How did we do this?
Kraft in the top. Kraft up there.
Very crafty of us.
We're aerospace experts, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I'm an aerospace expert. My old roommate used to do IT for Raytheon. I know everything about defense contracting.
I played a lot of Jane's games. Ask me anything. Let me go get my spiral notebook. I'll tell you what's going on. That sounds like a job you can't talk about, Alex. Did you? Did your
No.
old roommate really do that? Okay.
probably
Yeah,
talking
he
about
did
the
that,
IT
but
part.
I mean,
Okay.
like, I don't think they let him see anything secret. I think he just fixed people's stuck power buttons and made sure their email worked.
Okay. Tell me about the mustard missile. We've got a bunch of games to get to this week. No Zelda today, though. We'll probably get to that next week. I assume we will get to that next week. That game releases on Friday. So
I will
stay
say,
tuned for that. Yes.
I was in the city yesterday. My
New
dad
York-
and my
New York
stepmom were
City.
in town.
New York. Speaking, take it all back. New York City.
Damn right.
Yeah.
And I was taking them around, and we had lunch down in the East Village. And since I was there, I did pop into Video Games New York to see if they were going to break street date on Zelda.
Yeah. Was there a guy with 2 broken thumbs that was and a black eye basically saying like, sorry, you can't have it?
No, but I will say the way the guy said, no, we haven't gotten it in yet, had a real, there is a guy behind the curtain pointing a fucking gun with a laser sight at me right now. Like, no, but you can go to the website and sign up for the pre-order, and we will send you an email to let you know when the Zelda is in.
Just fucking a Yakuza sitting cross-legged with a gun. Good. Good. Just Kiryu.
You
Say
you
good.
just keep that up.
Very good.
I saw. Did you see? I think it was Elena Pierce on Twitter said her Twitch got banned briefly
Oh.
because she was watching somebody else's like legitimate video preview of that game,
Oh my gosh.
like approved footage, approved by Nintendo. She was just watching. Like they're so
Very touchy
itchy
now.
trigger
Yeah.
finger on the. We are going to ban anyone that even is like glancing in the direction of that game. Right now.
Ixnay on the Elder Day.
Nintendo do something horrible and draconian? No.
I mean, like taking the like oh boohoo poor corporation out of the equation, like it is kind of weird to think there are a bunch of people out there that I'm sure have finished that game by now. This is like one of their biggest releases of this generation of hardware. And there are who knows how many people out there that have already finished it before it's even out.
I'll just add to this weird conversation, and maybe in a better state than the retailer version will be in.
Easily.
A higher
Easily.
frame rate and higher resolution. But we are not going to be talking about the ins and outs anymore of the Zelda game. We had Alex had a preview. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago. So
Yes.
or you can go find, like Brad said, probably somebody playing it if you really want, or wait until it comes out on Friday. And we're going to talk about it next week. We are going to get to a couple of games here, including Tape to Tape, Touch Type Tail Boy. There's a bunch of T's in here. We got some alliteration. Golden Idol Mysteries, and Jedi Survivor. Let's just kick it off with Jedi Survivor before the break here, in case anybody is worried about spoilers. I finished it. I'm not going to spoil it, though. If there are any mechanics things that you're sensitive to, be aware. I might talk about some of those, but I'm not going to get into deep spoilers here. Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the latest and greatest in the Star Wars Jedi franchise, the follow-up to Forgotten Order, a direct sequel to Forgotten
You mean Fallen Order?
Sorry, did I say Forgotten Order?
I think you forgot the order.
I did the Forgotten Order, the Fallen Order, the Fallen Order.
What the order?
This game for me, this follows the tale of Cal Kestis, as Cal, 5 years after Fallen Order, is kind of trying to take on the Empire, very quickly realizes, boy, that's like trying to...
That's hard.
Shovel the drain. What's the analogy I'm looking for? Use a bucket to drain the sea. I don't know, something like that. Building sandcastles on the shore, having a tough time doing it. The Empire's all over the place. And Cal goes on his adventure, A to B to C, gets him trotting around. This game started off very slowly for me, and I wasn't really latching onto it. Kind of like God of War. It was, had kind of picked up directly from where the other game left off, and it was like, I need a little bit more new here. There's a lot that goes into playing a new thing, and this was it felt 80 to 90% similar to the old thing, and those are big time investment games. I don't say this a lot, so know that I do mean it. This game got better and better the closer I got to the end.
Okay.
Some games peter out, or sometimes games have this cliff where you're like, oh, I've gotten everything new and I'm just going to cruise through it. This game, the pacing is a little weird, but it did kind of move and accelerate, and the story got better and better as things went forward. And also the powers got better and better and more interesting as things went forward, and the traversal mechanics got better and better. So like I much more enjoyed playing this when I finished it than when I started it. And that's, I don't know if that's good or bad, because that means there's a long on-ramp that, it takes a long time to really get to the part where things kicked in for me. So that being said, my instinct was, or let me set this up a bit. This game mostly takes place, I think, Brad, you mentioned this too last time we talked about it, mostly wants you to take place on the big planet. I want to say Cobol, but I don't know. Actually, Kobo, thank you. And that's your largest landmass. Every planet's not going to be that. I've
heard that described a little bit as sort of like the hinterlands of Dragon Age Inquisition. Like, it's a place that you do spend a lot of time in, but like you should get out of there actually as soon as you can, because you should go back.
Yes, you should get out of there as soon as you can. There's going to be, and again, this isn't spoiler stuff, but this is just heads up. You're going to get stuff based on the story progression that's really going to flesh out the gameplay. Okay. And until you hit those milestones, you're really going to be limited in what you can do. So taking on all of that starter zone, and it's big, is kind of sucks.
Okay.
You don't have the tools to necessarily do it well. You don't have the tools to do it at all sometimes. And it's just going to be more fun if you come back later, I think. That being said, I did spend a decent amount of time there. That could have pushed me into a leveling zone where the game wasn't exceptionally difficult, though I did have a lot of challenges along the way with the main story beats. There are optional challenges in there, but with the main story stuff, it was, challenging. I played on normal difficulty. Let's say the last boss fight I had to do maybe 4 times, right? So like that's about where I was. They have this interesting thing. I didn't quite remember this happening as often, but maybe I didn't die as much in the first one. It's got a kind of a Souls quality to it. These games are very much built, and they kind of feel their age now a little bit, because the game industry feels like it's moved on from Souls-like a little bit. So it has this thing where you lose your experience if you die, and you have to touch or attack the last character that killed you, or at least be in that zone to regain that experience and get it back. But if you're fighting a boss, usually that will just be, you don't have to kill or touch the boss. It'll just be in the zone of the boss, right? And that could lead to situations where you're taking on an optional boss, you die, and your souls are, quote unquote, are in that area that you can no longer retrieve unless you want to actively fight that boss continuously, and you just have to abandon them. Not a huge deal. You kind of make up for that XP, because the XP bar fills up, and then it locks in a level. And then, so you'll have 2 skill points, and then you're working on your third. You'll only lose as much XP to that lock-in point. So, like, you'll never go back and actually lose a whole point. So you're never really losing that much in any given situation, but it's worth it to go back. A lot of fun skills you get. Cal feels extremely powerful by the end, which I really enjoyed. I think the story, while predictable in some parts, actually takes some interesting turns towards the end. I saw some things coming from a mile away. You probably could name them here. I don't, but you probably can sense what's going on. But that being said, it actually had some surprises in store. The game had a swerve where I thought we were done, and I was like, okay, yeah, no, I saw this coming. And then went on for quite a bit longer.
What direction is that story looking in, is the question I want to ask, because the first game's story was very much backward looking. It was just like all dealing with the fallout of events in the past. And now that has all been dealt with, like, is this much more forward looking? I mean, there's multiple levels on which to ask this question, because there's also the meta context of the larger Disney Star Wars efforts and TV shows, and are they trying to tie this in?
So I can answer that question in that context.
And there's even more there, which is like, oh, these are all real actors. I guess what people really are wondering is Cameron Monaghan going to show up on one of these shows sometime soon? You know what I mean?
I have to believe he is.
Like, and even where this is situated in the timeline, like the first game was very close to the prequels, so it was just like, hey, let's make all these character stories about what happened to these characters coming out of the prequels, but now it's like closer to the original movies. The Empire's more entrenched. I guess I'm just wondering Like, does this tie into the larger, Andor is in this time period as well, or is this just kind of its own thing?
So this movie borrows heavily from everything that's out there. It is borrowing might even be a light word. I wouldn't call it theft because it's in the same universe, but if you've seen it in a movie, or a show, it's probably in here somewhere and in some form.
Does that go for like characters showing up?
Well, some, you'll get Saul Guerrera.
They talk about him even in the prologue, and that was actually Forrest Whitaker in the first game.
Yeah,
right?
so you'll get that, which is tied into the what do we call the antecedent movie? Not the prequels, the follow up movies.
They call them the sequel trilogy. I think that's fine.
The sequel stuff.
Are you talking about the originals?
No, well, I'm talking about the Rey stuff.
Okay.
Wait, are they touching on that stuff?
Well, that's where Saul is from, right? Or no, he's not.
He's from Rogue One.
He's from Rogue One, which is
middle
produced after the prequels, but takes place before that. Sorry. So the stuff I would say, and I thought about this as I was playing it, the vibe I get is a smaller story, much more in the universe that feels like Andor is set in. If that makes sense. You're dealing with an entrenched empire that is kind of trying to cement its grip on planets through bureaucracy and kind of institution. You know what I mean? Instead of really going in there and just fighting a war, like the empire feels like it's taken over the bureaucracy of the Republic, right? And that's what the game kind of feels like, mixed with the high or the fantasy of a Jedi stuff. So it's not Andor where you're like, okay, nobody here's a Jedi. This is clearly a Jedi story. It's called Jedi Survivor. You're dealing a lot still with the fallout from Order 66 and the kind of separate the kind of execution of all the Jedi and the Order falling and all of this stuff. But you're not going there to stop the Empire. You're
not at that stage.
You're not blowing up a Death Star. This isn't like if we do this, we can cripple the Empire. And how could you? Because you are in the middle of this thing that has to span 27 more franchises post this, right? That being said, the story does touch on, like I said, it brings in some stuff that you're like, oh, this was made popular in this other series. You're going to just give that a big hug and pull that in here. This was made popular in this other series. You're just going to embrace that, and you'll see that stuff in there.
Yeah, it occurs to me they also have a movie announced now that's supposed to tie a bunch of those TV shows together.
Wait, so another Star Wars movie?
No, they announced a bunch of new movies, but one of them is a Dave Filoni driven, like, anybody and everybody from all these TV shows could show up in here kind of thing. Okay. So I wonder that could also be a place for stuff from this game to land potentially.
I've kind of lost the thread on the timeline stuff, so I don't know what is fertile ground in the universe. How much more time do we have until we start getting into episode 4?
From this game, still another 9-10 years.
So we're getting close, though. There's not too much to get.
They're creeping up
here.
on it.
It's about halfway. It's 19 years between 3 and 4.
Okay, yeah.
Which is like the most interesting period of Star Wars to tell stories about, frankly, is the part with the oppressive military machine running everything.
Yeah,
of course.
So you get some of this stuff, and this story is really... Again, I'm trying to talk vaguely about it because this game did just come out, but it is really about the fallout from the Empire and people trying to find a life outside of that. And that was a lot of the first game too, right? Is look at what happened. Look at these damaged people from the Empire and the war and the Clone War, and this is a little bit more of like people just want to get the fuck out of the grip of the Empire, and how do you accomplish that? They're winning. They're winning, and we don't know what to do.
It's interesting to hear you say that it gets a lot better as it goes along, because the problem I had with the first game is that I never got into a great rhythm with it, and it felt like it was dragging along in the beginning stages. And I'm having a little bit of that experience with this one, though it's not as bad. Like I think I'm more into what's actually taking place than I was in that first game, and the gameplay as well. But like I am finding myself like struggling to keep momentum with it in the early goings. Like, I'm probably like a half dozen hours into it or something at this point. I've gotten off that, the hinterland planet and have started bopping around a little more, but I think I'm just kind of waiting for it to get into that next gear, and it just hasn't quite done that for me yet. And I'm just worried I'm not going to get there because fucking Zelda's coming out, and I'm not sure I'm there with it yet.
Do they do the same thing as the first game, where they at some point start giving you multiple different places you could go at the same time? It's like, hey, here you've got 2 objectives. Here's 2 different planets. You should just go do one of them. Take your pick.
They kind of do that once, where you have 2 main A-plot objectives, and you could go to either one, and then they don't do that again. Then it's mostly side missions. You could go scoop up other places. They call them rumors. You have your hub on your main planet there, where you can talk to people, get side missions. There's a whole side mission bounty hunter quest that are optional bosses. But for the most part, after that initial, you could go to point A or point B. It's really, if you want to just go directly to the main A plot, you can just bow the planet. You're really just going off world and then coming back doing a part of that. You're always coming back to that main planet to go do another part, which I opened up and explored. I spent too long exploring that place, so I had a lot of fast travel points. So as soon as I would land, fast travel to where this thing is and just go there. It's a little Metroid-ish. You use your new ability to access this area that you couldn't access before. Yeah, it moves. I'll say the game really didn't pick up for me until I got the last 2 stances. And then I immediately refunded all the points I had put in. You could do it once for free. Because I was like, oh man, I dumped like 15 points into these 3 other stances that I'm never going to use again. Because you can only equip 2 at a time. And so I was like, well, these 2 stances, you kind of get them back to back almost. I was like, these are the ones I want to use from now on. One of them, I, on principle, just kind of don't like because I never liked it when they introduced it. It's all movie stuff, or it's mostly movie stuff. And I was like, but it's my favorite stance in the game. But it's, I don't know, people could probably figure it out from what I'm talking about. But it's, I was like, kind of hate to love this or love to hate this stance, but it's the one I use all the time. So you can refund all your points once for free, and then you have to spend a point to refund them after that. But so if you're worried about it,
the constant tension of this thing doesn't look cool, but it's extremely effective.
Or like it kind of looks cool. Like let's just say my feelings, if you've been listening to this podcast for 100 episodes or plus, are probably known about lightsaber escalation. Mm-hmm. And it kind of swims in that pool of like, you're gonna bring that fucking thing in. We're doing this.
This is what we're doing.
This is what we're doing. Okay, great. This game also is heavy in the customization. We talked about this before. Heavy. You're getting beards, 160,000 lightsaber parts. I'm gonna say colorways. They don't call it that, but I'm gonna call it that.
I saw. There's a straight up mullet.
Yep, mustaches, handlebar mustaches, mullets, goatees, soul patch. I think literally they call it a soul patch. You can make Cal look like a real dirtbag if you want. I kind of went with, let's just call it like Obi-Wan, like longer beard and kind of swept back hair ish.
Okay.
Put a cape on him for most of the game. Didn't really switch up too much. I didn't get too deep into the customization. I found
it feels very perfunctory. Like it's there because someone told them that that's what people like in video games, but Cal just does not feel like a character that like really warrants that kind of customization.
Yeah, Star Wars has always been an action figure franchise. Like it's just more of the wish fulfillment stuff of I want this guy to look like I think is cool.
Yeah, here's
what color my lightsaber would be.
Cal is very paper doll. Like he doesn't have a lot of personality going for him. So
which is unfortunate. But sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. But it's unfortunate because it's like that actor is not interesting enough to give that character enough personality to really make him shine in that story. But also, if you're gonna make him a sort of generic stand-in for you, the Jedi, why would you get a specific actor's likeness? Why wouldn't you just make them a customizable character? Make them like V in fucking Cyberpunk, you know? It's like, I don't really understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak to this game, but I mean, the character had plenty of pathos in the first game, but yeah, his delivery is pretty deadpan, generally, and I assume that's... I don't know, actually, I haven't... What was the Fox It's not a Batman series, but it's like Batman adjacent. Was it Gotham?
It was Gotham.
Is that that's a TV show, right?
It was, yeah, for a few
seasons.
seasons.
Wasn't he on there?
He might have been. I never watched Gotham. I mostly just saw people sharing videos of oh, look, this character showed up in Gotham, but I never watched it.
He was Joker on that show.
Oh,
anyway, I bring it up because I've seen people saying oh yeah, he was really good on Gotham. So I don't know if that's his style or if that's just what he's doing here. I don't know, but
the supporting cast is much more interesting to me, and they have much more personality and flesh out a lot of the world there. And that's more fun to me than maybe his portrayal. Going back to the customization, though, it's put some different boots on him, put a different cape, and it is what it is.
Yeah, but, I mean, it seems like the kind of thing that's easily ignored unless that's all you're getting for a bunch of side quests, and you don't know that until you're doing the side quests. Because I could see that being kind of annoying, but at least you're getting XP, I guess. So
there are about 3 or 4 different main ways to get. There's a perk system, so you're collecting collectibles to get perks, side missions to get perks. There are side missions to get lightsaber parts. There are side missions to get new cosmetics, beards, and shirts and stuff. I'm trying to think there's what the 4th one is. And they all have these different collectibles that you get and then turn in for 5 to get a new beard or 5 to get a new thing. Of course, go save up and go get the new perk slot. That's the one you want. And then save up and get the one that gets you more XP when you kill somebody. That's the one you want. Of course, that's the one you want. But yeah, I engaged with the systems just enough to be like, okay, you're right, Brad. The bummer is when you go off path and you spend, a minute and a half or 2 minutes exploring and then pop open a chest and they're like, here's a beard I'm never going to use. And you're like, oh man, that sucks. Because sometimes you'll go off path for a minute and a half and you'll be like, oh, it's a permanent health upgrade. Those little force sit down points, or it's a permanent force upgrade. And those are absolutely what you want. So yeah, the cosmetic stuff is a lot.
Yeah.
Overall, I'd say I really enjoyed it. It was a ramping up. By the time I finished was probably the height of my enjoyment of it, and that's a positive thing to say about a game. But it does have a pretty slow ramp up to those things. And again, not until I got those 2 other stances, and then I was like, I want to get points because now I want to invest in these stances. Was I really enjoying? The powers never felt that good. The force powers never felt that good. Until I started getting more and more stuff later in the game, and was like, oh, okay. Like force push and force pull, which is kind of what you start with. They just kind of feel impotent. Like, yeah, like you can run around, you can pull a stormtrooper towards you and stick your lightsaber through him, but the game compensates for that by putting 15 stormtroopers in a line, and also you drain your force powers fairly quickly. So it never felt that great. I would say 60 to 70% of the people feel force resistant in the game unless you've leveled up enough. So when you go to force push somebody, they just stand there or block it.
This is kind of a minor example of the Superman problem. It's always the problem making video games around Jedi, so that they should be able to just slice and dice everything in sight, so you have to contrive a bunch of bullshit to make them not be able to do that.
I mean, the first game didn't do this, and I this doesn't really bother me, but it's something I'll point out. Is like, you're constantly slashing through people that are just taking the hit with your lightsaber until the cinematic shot where somebody gets poked with the end of a lightsaber and they die. More to that point, though, which I will give them a little bit of shit for, and this is my lightsaber escalation problem. Fucking everybody's got a lightsaber. It don't matter who you are. Just kids on the street picking lightsabers up out of the trash.
There's a lot of them to go around,
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I had to go read some profiles and be like, is this a fucking Jedi or a Sith or something? It's like, no, it's just Joe's who's got a lightsaber.
I think I want to say there was like some EU thing about like the clone troopers gathering up all the lightsabers after they purged the temple, like burning them in a bonfire or something. It's like, maybe there's just a bunch of them lying around.
I mean, there is a character in this game who is literally giving out lightsabers to people. So like,
right.
But
is it General Grievous?
Look, they need to sell more of those things at the Disney parks. All right, what are these games if not just really elaborate merch catalogs?
But it answers my question. This question has been answered by the community numerous times. Of do you need to be force attuned to wield the lightsaber effectively? This game says, hell no, you do not. Just pick that shit up. It's a sword. It's a sword that buzzes. It's a light sword.
Yeah.
I mean, listen, maybe effectively. I beat them all, so maybe they aren't that effective with it. But yeah, everybody's got a damn lightsaber. It's okay. I'll get over it.
Yeah.
It's the
you
true...
should. It's just going to weigh on you otherwise.
It's all right. It's okay. Everybody can have a lightsaber. I use mine better. The stances are fun. I had a good time with it. Jedi Survivor, I'm going to say solid game. Like, again, I was actually kind of dragging on it a bit. Get those stances, get some more force powers unlocked. No spoilers here, but you might guess that you can do other things with the force besides pull and push. Get those. You'll have some fun with it. I'll say this, drop points into the confuse enemy thing. Use that all day long. The resistances to that are actually, you can push through those with some points. You just make those troopers fight each other all day. And then just
that was my strategy in Assassin's Creed. I always used that poison dart that made dudes go after other dudes, and it always worked.
Use the berserk dart. Yeah, let them fight. That's Jedi Survivor, yeah?
Would you say it's like 4 out of 5? The way you're talking, which is what I would have given the first game if it hadn't been a technical mess.
So you say that, and what I say is, if this game crashed on me more than once.
Yeah, it's crashed on me a couple of times already.
On playing on PS5, and it's crashed. I actually had a very scary moment where the game loaded into a cutscene, crashed. It rebooted. It said I've never seen this before. It said my save data was corrupted.
Oh, no.
Loading back in, but then said something else in the notification, and I couldn't. It's like your save data was corrupted, but we do, and then ... I didn't have time to pull it up, and I couldn't find that notification again. But then stalled on the load, froze on the load back into the thing.
So I came in here to say, I fired up the PS5 last night and saw that the game had pulled another patch, and I was like, I'll jump back in there and see if it's gotten a little smoother. Because I really do want to play through this, but there's plenty of other stuff to play that is not in a rough state at the moment.
Yeah.
And it locked up, loading my save the first time I tried.
So that's what happened to me. This was immediately post-patch, so you might just want to try it again. Mine locked up immediately post-patch.
I did, and it did load in the second time, but I was like, man, this is not making a good first impression. After your latest update, there are a lot of other games I could be playing, and so I went back to RE4 instead.
So my biggest thing with this game is it seems poorly optimized and seems like it could have used a couple of more, maybe a month or two more in QA and development time, because there are just things that are the load times, and I'm very spoiled on PS5, let's say, or Xbox Series X, but the load times seem longer than they should for being on those systems, especially when you are fast traveling around, and they do things where you go to your base and you have to sit in front of a door for 20 seconds while the door is just shut because it's loading in the thing behind it, and you're like, come on, man, like, this sucks. Like, you gotta stream this in better. But I guess I kind of get it because you're fast traveling in and then immediately going to this other interior area. You noticeably see the frame rate pick up when you're inside smaller caves and areas, which, you know, on the PS5, it's kind of nice because the frame rate picks up a lot. And then there's just like weird control issues that's like, this feels inaccurate for what you're asking me to do. I'm wall running and I'll hit a wall and run the wrong way or slide off a thing, or
there's something weirdly slidey about the character movement in the game in general. Like, it almost feels like he's sort of ice skating a little bit when you start moving from a stop, you know? It's like he sort of slides forward before he fully starts animating. It's just weirdly loose.
I will say I didn't take a picture of this. I should have. I thought about it, or a movie. My favorite bug I had was I was on the ship and it got caught in this weird load-in loop where I was in hyperspace, but I had to go back and hit the destination again. But my hair was like I was fine, but my hair was like I was falling. I don't know if you've seen the hair tech in that game. So it was just hair flying Goku style in the air as I had to go to the table.
I've got a certain affinity for effects being applied to characters where they shouldn't be, like that, like wind when there is no wind. I don't know if you saw the Last of Us Part 1 PC port the week that came out. There was a video going around of like a very tense cutscene where the characters were just getting water applied to them randomly throughout this while they're like arguing.
Oh no.
It's like all of a sudden like Joel is drenched in water out of nowhere.
All right. That's yes. Those are okay. The game breaking one's not so okay. A lot of like weird, I did the same thing twice and had different results 2 times, right? Like, I don't know what I did differently this time, but this time I made that jump instead of missed that jump.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully it gets polished up and is fine. I don't know how things are on the PC, so I'm playing on the PS5 again. I know that sounded like it launched pretty rough over there.
Extremely.
Hopefully things are better there. So when you ask me 4 out of 5, I don't know. I know there's no half star, but I would take.
Wow.
I would probably take a half if we could. A 3.5, and that half star being for some of the technical challenges.
Absolutely no half stars in this world.
Do I count the PC version? I didn't play the PC version. On the PS5, I would say it's a soft 4. Because
okay. So 7 out of 10. A 7 out of 10 is what you're saying.
Yeah. I'd average up to the 4 and not average down to the 3 for the technical problems. But they're there and they're present, and I think they will be fixed or addressed, but they are definitely there and they can get in your way a bit. So beware on some of that. But yeah, enjoyable. Hopefully one's maybe a little less enjoyable than the first one. But I think the story really picks up and it goes. Most of the A plot I was snoozing through, and then it kind of picked up about 3/4 of the way through, and I was like, okay. Once it took its predictable turn, I was like, this is actually more enjoyable than the whole other part I was having. Curious how this one does, because it very much like Horizon leaves off, not as explicit as Horizon, but leaves off on like, you are clearly, this is a franchise, you are making more of these.
I would hazard to believe that it will do well enough for EA to say you should just go make that third one.
Yeah, they're already out there kind of ballyhooing about the early sales. It's apparently doing quite well. And, Respawn's also making that Star Wars first-person shooter, so...
Oh,
Respawn
wait, I didn't know Respawn was doing that. Okay.
Respawn is, largely becoming a Star Wars developer now.
I don't know what happened here on the technical side. I hope Respawn, and I hope they figure it out, because these games should be very good, and it's a shame that they get knocked around for some of this technical stuff, developmental stuff. These should be very good, and they are generally very good Star Wars games, and the world needs more of those. Not that the world needs anything more Star Wars, but the world...
Yeah, I was going to say for a second there, are you sure need is the word there?
Needs good ones, yeah.
Yeah, needs good ones, because there are a bunch of crap ones and mediocre ones, and...
with the fallout of Battlefront 2.
Yeah.
And...
There's a lot of Star Wars games out there. Most of them are middling. And these are very good. But
it's been a long time since that heyday of TIE Fighter and Dark Forces.
Yeah.
Shadows of the Empire.
Shadows of the Empire.
I don't know if I quite put Shadows of the Empire up there with those.
That game, sort of.
How was that game received critically? I don't remember.
I remember getting a lot of 7s.
It has its diehard fans, of course, but
at the time, I don't remember how it was. Was it like this is amazing at the time, or this is a foggy mess at the time? These levels.
That Hoth level sure got a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm. KOTOR, one of the greats.
Yes.
There are great ones, but also there are some real clunkers out there.
Well, yeah.
Star Wars Jedi Survivor out now across the board, $70 to get you in on that. I don't know the state of the PC. I played it on PS5, so take that for what it is worth. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk more video games. There's even more to talk about, so stick around. We'll be right back. This week's show is brought to you by Factor, Alex and Brad. You know what I love possibly even more than video game? Spoilers, it's food.
Oh, well, I was going to say pizza or something, so that checks out.
Yeah, that's a good guess. Pizza would be up there. I love food, but I don't always love cooking because it gets in the way of the other thing I love, which is playing video games and squeezing in all of that gaming time. But there is something that might be able to help. Might be a factor in getting me some more free time.
I see what you did there.
Yeah,
well, if they're not paying us for that level of synergy.
Factor is America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, and it can help you save time, eat well, and tackle everything on your to-do list. With Factor, you can skip the trip to the grocery store and skip the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up, too. Now, my cleanups for cooking are notoriously bad. I use a bowl for every item. It's a big mess. It's no No good.
You're a messy Vinny.
Yeah, so the household thanks you, Factor. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back out and do whatever you were doing. Or back on the couch, let's say, and do whatever you're doing, maybe in my case. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. They offset 100% of their delivery emissions to your door, source 100% renewable electricity for their production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in their meals. If you want to get in on all of this, you can head to factormeals.com/Nextlander40 and use code Nextlander40 to get 40% off your first box. That's code Nextlander40 at factormeals.com/Nextlander40 to get 40% off your first box. Thanks, Factor. And we are back. A game that I really just can't say enough good things about. The Case of the Golden Idol has DLC. I'm sorry, Golden Idol Mysteries.
Mm-hmm. It's franchised.
Which is the Case of the Golden Idols DLC, The Spider of Lanka. It's out. It's very good. It's $6. I think you can get them both for $20 or so on Steam. If you haven't played these games and don't know what they are they've got this kind of Apple IIe graphic, this aesthetic, this severe raster aesthetic. It is a kind of a mystery game where you get set up in these vignettes and you're clicking through a bunch of keywords and then you have two screens. One is a little vignette of what happened with maybe a couple of different scenes, and then the other side of it is trying to puzzle out in kind of a blank went to the shop in this Mad Lib style and murdered blank with a blank, and you're trying to puzzle out using your verbs and nouns that you've collected throughout the scene.
It's kind of Clue in a way.
In a way, yeah.
A bit.
And with the end result kind of progressing you through this greater narrative of kind of not quite Cthulhu-esque or not quite there, but this, could be in that vein of mysteries of the ancients, kind of.
Sounds like this DLC is pretty tied to the original game. Is that
it's
the
a
case?
prequel? It's a direct prequel to it.
Okay.
That first scene you get in the original game, this game kind of ends leading up to that. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's neat. I mean, because they could easily just take this format and start spinning off completely unrelated stories.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I want more DLC that bridges a little bit more between where this game ends and that first scene. There is some time there that is not explained, but this doesn't really have that much to do with the first game other than some characters.
Okay.
It's kind of a self-contained little bit here that you don't necessarily need to have played the first game, but why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? You have to have the game to get the DLC, and it kind of loads into the game, and you could start it anytime you want. It might be worth playing if you're new to this, the Golden Idol Mysteries, let's say. If you're new, to start with the DLC. It won't spoil anything for you, but you can then go roll right into the main game. It's fun. It's not very long. Depending on how long.
It's like 3 scenarios, right?
It's 3 scenarios, though. A scenario might have a lot of screens in it, so you might have, you might have 4 screens within a scenario to kind of plug away in. It takes what I think it picks up. You know what? I will say this: you should probably at least get halfway through, maybe Golden Idol, because this game kind of mechanics-wise picks up thinking you have finished that game, because it's dense from the jump. They don't hold your hand in the very first screen. You are presented with a lot of blanks and a lot of things to put in, whereas the original Golden Idol, the main game, kind of walks slowly up to that point of being like, okay, now we're going to give you multiple screens. Now we're going to add in these cases to solve. So you might be in a little over your head if you haven't played the original one, kind of understanding what it's asking of you, understanding the mechanic where it's like 2 or fewer things are wrong here, and then you just kind of swap them out and you're like, okay, I understand this. I'm going to brute force this one. A lot of fun though. I really, these games are fantastic. I love them. There are a few franchises that I just will buy sight unseen. This is becoming one of them. To just be like, give me it. I'm excited for it. I was bummed I finished it. It was like an afternoon of playing, maybe two sittings. So
Okay.
highly recommended, especially if you like that first game. You probably already have this one.
Feels like there's just like endless stuff they could do in this kind of like Victorian horror vein.
Yeah, like I said, there's a very
keep going.
There's a very clear like I want to see what actually step by step led up to the events of the first game. I would love to see that. Graphically, like they kind of tweak it a little bit. There's like maybe some more 3D stuff in this, which is a little weird. Just in some of the character animations, which initially I was like, "Ooh, that's weird," but you get over it. It's okay. That's Golden Idol Mysteries, The Spider of Lanka. It's $6 for that piece of DLC. It is out currently. Highly recommend. Alex Navarro.
Yes.
Tape to tape.
Tape to tape.
What's up with the tape to tape?
I feel like we talked a little bit about this one when those
We
Steam
did.
demos were coming around earlier in the year. And that game has officially released in early access on Steam. It is okay. It's arcade hockey. That's the core conceit here. It is an arcade hockey game. But it is also a run-based game. It is a roguelite, if you want to call it one of those. The campaign is you as a particular, I'm going to say, Canadian-Scottish character who has abandoned hockey in favor of golf, but has now returned to the world of hockey alongside your brother and a bunch of other weird misfit players. And you're on a progression where you are going through a campaign of elite matchups against other teams, as well as challenge matchups, and then there are like random events that pop up along the way that will sometimes give you buffs, sometimes maybe give you debuffs, depending on what's happening. And you're on some kind of quest to rescue hockey as a concept. I'm not exactly sure what the quest even really is.
Okay.
But also it kind of doesn't matter because really you're there for the bite-sized chunks of hockey gameplay that they give you in the campaign. You can just play it also. It is a game that you can play outside of the campaign as just an arcade hockey game. But I think the campaign is really where the meat of it is. And, it's not just like NHL 94 style, like, sort of off-the-wall hockey. It is like there are a lot of weird abilities in this game where, you can, if you have a particular defensive ability, you can throw your stick at other players to knock them over.
Oh, hockey.
Or, you have a special shot that will just basically cause the puck to go straight into the faces of any players that are in front of you and knock them over.
Ouch.
You get, buffs for... So you start out the campaign with your main character, you pick another player of some talent that you have unlocked. You get a choice of 3 at the beginning of the campaign, and then you get 3 scrub guys that join you as well, and then they can get buffed as you go along, though only to a certain degree. Trying to think what else there is to say about it, other than it's just really fun, actually. Like, I've been playing a lot of it, and part of it is that I'm kind of starved for a good hockey game. The NHL EA games have not been doing it for me in recent years. I've heard they've gotten better, but I have not really dove in the last couple of years. And nobody's really making arcade hockey games, as far as I can tell. It's just not a genre that has really been plundered to any significant degree since, I'm going to say, the heady days of NHL Hits.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, so I have been playing a bunch of this. I've not gotten super deep into the campaign. I've gotten to like the second boss fight, like the second tier, and bombed out. The boss teams are pretty tough, but they also I think have gone on record saying that they are still balancing it. They're tweaking the balance of it as they go along. Again, it is an early access, so there is still time for them to do a bunch of stuff to it. But I think what's there is very playable in its early access state, and it feels like something you could pretty easily dive into now.
It's funny, I was looking at this just now, and it is 4-player co-op, or I think co-op here, but it says using play locally or Steam Remote Play, which I thought was a funny way to say online play. So it says the campaign is totally co-op too, if you want to jump in there, which is cool.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't tried that.
So are there choices for like narrative stuff that you make, or is it mostly upgrades and
It's
character
mostly upgrades. Like, in between major matchups, there's usually like a branching path where it's like, okay, do you want to go do a challenge match, which is usually just like first goal wins, and then you get a few pieces of rubber, which is the game's currency, which you use to unlock stuff in the shop in between runs.
Okay.
Or you can go, let's say, to this camp so you can rest and you'll get a particular stat boost for everything on your team. Or you'll go to a special hidden event, which is like, your character has studied with a bunch of rabid dogs, and now everyone is really scared of you when they get near you on the ice and they shoot worse. So stuff like that.
I just saw a clip I watched you play this on that stream some months ago, and it seemed pretty straightforward. I just saw a clip in this trailer of a giant tentacle bursting through the rink.
So there's some allusions to tentacles and maybe old gods. Like the second boss, if I remember correctly, is like a coven of wizards that play hockey, like demon wizards. I mean, the first boss you fight is a team of refs who cheat. But yeah, there's definitely room for some weird, wacky fantasy shit to infect what's going on there.
Yeah, it seems like a cool mashup of stuff.
It is. It's really smartly designed, I feel like. The hockey is good enough. Like, they're doing things like they're doing away with offsides rules, so it doesn't really matter. There aren't really penalties to speak of as far as I can tell. If there's fighting, I haven't encountered it yet, though I wouldn't be surprised if that's something they put in there at some point. But it really is just like, grab the puck, pass it around, do your dumb abilities, and just, try and hit some good one-timers. Like, it's not that complicated, but it feels good. Like, there's enough hockey strategy in there to feel like it isn't just the cartoon violence.
Yes, fighting is listed on the early access page.
Okay.
$20.
$20.
Over on the PC. Tape to tape.
Yes, I'm into it.
Catch it. Another one here. Brad Shoemaker, $20. Not tape to tape, but touch type tail.
Touch type tail?
We got tape to tape, touch type tail.
Nope, you lost it.
Touch type tail, $20. I think this one's over on the Epic Store currently. Yes. What is touch type tail, Brad?
I'm just going to say the top line of this is a real-time strategy game that you play entirely by typing.
Great. Is that just writing a book?
Is what this is. This was recommended to me by Ben Hansen of MinMax fame.
Mm-hmm.
I was on their trivia tower recently. If you go catch that on their YouTube, that was a good time.
Catch it.
If you want to see people get completely perplexed by the existence of the adventures of Bayou Billy.
Aw, wait, why are they confused?
Because it's a weird game.
Fair, okay.
It tried to be too many things. Yeah, he recommended this game to me, and I finally got around to checking it out. It is bananas. It pretty much does for RTS what Typing of the Dead did for light gun shooters.
Okay.
Essentially. I will say the maps are not totally open. They're all very lane based. So like between strategic points, you've got specific roads that you can send units on. So, because actually controlling omnidirectional units by typing words would be fucking impossible.
Mm-hmm.
Once you see how this game works. So it is funneled toward choke points in that way. But you are literally typing to do everything in this game. There's so much going on at one time, I struggle to even know where to begin describing it. But it's all the RTS stuff you think. It is mining gold, like running farms, building barracks, producing units, moving them around. You've got the standard kind of cavalry, archer, pikeman, like that whole rock, paper, scissors combat balance kind of thing. There are escort missions occasionally where you're trying to protect units that are moving on their own and like do timing based stuff. Like that's actually, I'm going to play this on the grab bag because you really just need to see it in action to understand it.
So
go on.
Well, I was going to ask, are the words related to what the actions?
Completely just pulled out of a dictionary.
Okay.
They're all typically 1 and 2 syllable words because if they were longer, it would be basically impossible. They do enforce capitalization, which can be tricky.
Okay.
Also, if you mistype, you lose a little bit of mana.
Okay.
Which sucks. Every mistyped letter is a little bit of mana gone. Although it does recharge automatically, at least. It sounds crazy to say this, but they have actually upped the amount of busy work from your average RTS. Like you might think, oh, you're typing, you don't have a mouse. Probably they have streamlined some things to make this a little easier to play. You thought wrong.
Okay.
You have to, for example, okay, like, like your average StarCraft, you like assign peons to go mine from the gold mine or whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In this game, you have to manually hire every peon that is going to go gather gold for you. So you go hire one by typing a word, first you activate the castle by typing that word, and then you hire a peon with a word. Now you've got one peon gathering gold.
I see. So like
to get more than one getting you gold, you have to manually raise the money and continue hiring them one by one.
So is it
they don't mine gold for you automatically. There's a whole separate mechanic for going in the mine, and you propel this mine cart with a single key.
Oh boy.
And also have to like type the word attached to each gold nugget as you pass it in this mine cart to get it before it scrolls off the screen. So you have to both manually hire workers to go get you gold and also go manually hire each piece of gold they will get. Also, all the workers retire at the end of each day. So when the next day dawns, you have to go hire them all again. Like, it is ludicrously complicated. Like, the game actually defaults to hard. Like hard on the difficulty tier says the default difficulty, a stiff challenge, blah, blah, blah. It's fucking hard, man. It is really incredibly multitasking intensive because you are having to do 8 things at once and type words to do them.
Yeah.
Because like you're taking points on the map where you can then build forward defenses and barracks and stuff like that. But there are constantly enemies trying to take them back from you. There are all kinds of mechanics around like flanking and attacking in motion versus at rest. Like cavalry does way more damage if you attack while you're running rather than obviously being stationary. Like there are damage bonuses by flanking from multiple directions. And again, you're constantly managing all this other busy work and having to type shit all over the place. It really taxes your ability to keep up with everything going on.
Sounds buck wild.
Crazy. It is crazy. It's like once I started feeling myself getting good at it, it felt like incredibly satisfying.
So would you say, is it fair to say that if you basically replace all the every click with typing a word in an RTS game, it is like you instead of clicking on your home center or your town center and then clicking on build a unit, you type a word to go into that menu and then type a word to build that unit? Okay.
And to be clear, you're not like typing castle every time you want to activate the castle and hire another worker. The words are all randomized. Like,
and there's a change once you've gone
every
in?
single time you enter one, it changes to something else.
Oh my gosh.
So that's what it is you can't even be managing a skirmish and just type the word that maps to castle or farm.
Oh man.
You actually have to look manually back and see, okay, what's the word this time to use the castle?
Oh man.
Your eyes are darting all over the screen and you are typing as fast as you can, basically. It's straight up rates your words per minute and accuracy at the end of each level. It's buck wild. It is ludicrously complicated and like kind of exhilarating.
At the end of a level, is it a whole new scenario, or are you building on top of what you did previously, like expanding your base?
The campaign is just bouncing from location to location with different objectives, and there's a story. There's a story there. It's like this whole kind of Merlin and Newt kind of. You're the Newt, like Merlin takes off, and you're the apprentice who finds the wizard's magic typewriter and finds that you can influence events with this thing. It's also got a skirmish mode. I haven't tried that yet, but you straight up just can play like AI matches.
Can you play other players?
I don't know if it has online or not.
Okay. It'd be tough on the same keyboard.
It's like, for as much as I feel like you can just kind of say like, oh, it's any game genre but typing, the way that Typing of the Dead is. Like, it feels really mechanically dense and pretty well thought out, if, again, incredibly demanding. Like, it's pretty impressive design, I think.
This does say online competitive play, which sounds bananas.
Oh my god. Okay. Huh.
You might have to, if you do this on the grab bag, I might ask you to go online.
I won't, because
you're not allowed to play that on stream.
You won't hear anything else on the stream except my fucking typing.
Like, that's the thing. I don't think I'm going to be able to talk while playing this on a stream. Like, it's kind of, I don't think it's possible.
That is a Touch Type Tail strategic typing. That is on the Epic Game Store. It came out in late March. $20. Is it still early access or whatever Epic's thing is, or is that fully released at this point?
I didn't see that on the store page.
Okay. It looks like it might just be out. Pumpernickel Studios.
Mm-hmm. Made in Germany, I want to say, because there's a logo for some German kind of national arts endowment thing at the top.
Okay.
I don't see anything about early access.
No, I'm not seeing it either. It was in our database with the early access tag, but I think that just might be old. I wonder, do you know if you can do any other languages in there? Like for the typing?
I don't.
Okay. That'd be interesting to have other languages for the typings. Oh yeah, this says text: English, French, German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Polish, Portuguese.
Wow.
Russian, Spanish, Latin American, Spanish, Spain, Turkish, and Chinese simplified. Dang.
It's really cool. I kind of just want to get off of here and go play more of it.
Touch, type, tail, strategic typing. Brad, anything else you want to chat about?
I came into this podcast fully intending to have played more Redfall.
What happened?
I don't know. There's like this happens occasionally, right? Like a game comes out and is like bad or broken, or there's something about it. It's generally not well received. And then this sort of contrarian zeitgeist starts forming around it where a small number of people are like, fuck this, I'm going to finish this thing. I'm just going to, you know what I mean? Like sometimes you're just gripped by this like need to debase yourself by seeing the whole thing.
Yeah, I have to see where this goes.
And to be clear, like I think I'm less down on Redfall than most people. Like I absolutely will not apologize for any of its shortcomings.
It has many.
But I wasn't hating it. Like I was like, like there's loot. There's loot. Basically. It's the main thing.
It's loot.
But I kind of wanted to see more of it, especially because who else is going to, right? Like very few people outside of reviewers probably are even going to finish that game. So I was like,
it's free on Game Pass. Some people will just kind of play through. No, all right. Yeah.
Taking the temperature of the conversations I have witnessed about it, that is just hastening people's desire to stop playing it. Anyway, I was going to try to push past where I had seen at that event and blah, blah, blah. I wanted to maybe try to get to the second map or something. Remember when we did that stream?
Yes.
Remember when I gained like 3.5 levels on that stream?
Sure, yeah.
And like got a bunch of way better guns?
Yes, gear and levels.
So I fired it back up over the weekend, intending to jump back into the solo campaign. All of that progress was gone.
I don't think that's how it's supposed to be designed.
All of it was gone. It was like we never did that stream.
Wait, so I know mission progress is supposed to be on the host, but I thought it said loot and levels.
Yes,
come over.
It is explicitly spelled out in the game that you keep experience and levels from co-op.
Okay.
So I did some Googling around and I found a Reddit thread basically full of people with the exact same problem. Like, I'm not going to say it is like broken across the board for everybody, but there sure were a lot of other people in there running into the same issue.
It does seem like it is at the very least common.
I was fucking livid, man.
Yeah, I was going to say that would really be
that's fucked up.
That's those aren't dice you want to roll on whether you're going to keep that experience when playing co-op.
Like there are bugs that are entertaining, there are bugs that are at least like interesting conceptually.
Yes.
And then there are bugs that just make you say fuck this.
Progress bugs.
Yeah.
Instantly uninstalled the game.
This is 100% a fuck this bug. I agree with you.
Seriously, if there's one thing I have zero patience for is about with games, it is games that waste your time in that way.
Totally.
Sure.
I was like, dude, that's 2 hours down the drain.
Yes.
Of progress in a game that is mostly about progress.
Also not replicable because you got random loot.
And also a game that has been billed since the very first reveal as a co-op experience.
Yep. Oh, it is an experience.
And here you have shipped a game where a major component of the co-op is broken enough to spawn a lot of discussion about its brokenness.
Man, what the fuck?
I could not believe it, man. I was like, are you serious? Are you actually serious?
So that's a wild one too, because I'm not a game developer. And so take this obviously with not Vinny talking from a development side, but I would think that having it be on the, at least focused on the Xbox and Microsoft PC Xbox ecosystem would make some of that matchmaking a little easier, or quote unquote matchmaking, grouping up multiplayer, because you're not dealing with crossplay between PS5 and other consoles, let's say. Hopefully you can get that infrastructure a little better, but that, and like to goof on that one, which is like you said, it's a cardinal sin in gaming, right? Like you can't lose progress, especially, I'll take it a step further from you. especially in a loot game where you're going in asking people to come join you. You're not going to keep your mission progress, but you will keep your loot and your experience. So please come join me on my stream or even my session stream. That's a really rough one to roll the dice. Is there any way for people to tell if while you're in a session if you will lose your progress?
Not that I could tell.
Okay.
People were like, "Oh, maybe that happens if the host quits before you do," but I made a point of quitting before you did after that stream.
Yeah.
I
wonder if you joined back up.
Yeah.
I wonder if you joined me. I guess you just bring that character back in.
I guess we'll never know because I'm not reinstalling the game to do that.
Hey, maybe when the first DLC drops, that they have already probably started working. The first and only DLC for that game drops.
Yeah, I like to be clear. I'm not enjoying like clowning on it here. I would have preferred to keep the progress and see more of the game.
That's a huge public service announcement. I didn't even know that was a thing. That's a big one.
I have not been that mad at a game being broken in some time.
That's a real bummer. Look, nobody wants a game to be, well, with rare exception, nobody wants the game to be come out poorly, especially one that's from a fairly storied studio like Arcane.
Yeah. Like I had gone through the achievements looking at what they have you doing, and it sounds like there's a lot of sort of named bosses, named enemies, like kind of special vampire type stuff. I was like, I kind of want to see like, the basic enemies are fairly dull in this game, but I want to see what their idea is of like later game more interesting stuff, like just some of the descriptions of like places you might go. I was like, okay, maybe there's some flavor in here that is worth seeing. That's kind of what piqued my interest, but
that's a bummer.
Oh well.
Did you get up to anything else? You mentioned some Resident Evil 4.
I pivoted back to RE4.
Nice. Okay. You went to your comfort zone
with more recent games.
Yeah.
Not functioning so well. I was like, here's a game that works. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say there. I ended up putting that down right before I built this PC because it has taken a lot of time for a lot of reasons since. But I picked it back up. I'm rolling around with Ashley. Like I'm pretty deep in.
Any of those mechanics changed? Still hiding in a dumpster?
I can't remember. Like they make a big deal in this out of having two kind of stances where you can have her like stay close or hang back, which you need to do to sort of manage her aggro and damage.
I thought there was a wait here and follow me, but
I don't remember it being as much of a big deal in the original.
Yeah.
But I haven't played that game.
You could just tell her to go hide in the dumpster, right?
I think so.
I don't remember.
But this is much more like, hey, tell her to hang back if there are enemies with like wide-ranging attacks, so she could avoid those type stuff.
How has the difficulty been as you've been moving on? Like still pretty aggressive?
Yeah, I haven't spent a ton of time with it since I picked it back up, but it had gotten way better once I started upgrading some stuff, and like I said, investing in the bolt thrower is clutch. Okay. In that game, I find, although also ammo is kind of not a big deal.
Okay, action game.
Right, like when I went and fought the El Gigante, like I kind of was like dumping a lot of bullets into it, like standard Resident Evil thing of like I need to conserve bullets, even though this game is really not that. I was getting down to like 20 bullets or something in that fight, and then like a bunch of crates broke, and I just ran around picking everything up. I had like 75 bullets after the fight was over.
Oh, nice.
Like it really is a game where you should probably just kind of spray. I mean, I have heard it does get a little limited in that fashion at some point.
I mean, I ran out of ammo a couple of times in that one encounter that I haven't picked it up since that I don't know what you call it, that scaffolding encounter that I really didn't like.
Yeah, I think my main thing is I probably just need to push myself through the game and not try to be a completionist, because money is somewhat limited, so you gotta pick and choose your upgrades and what weapons you buy and stuff, but also maybe it's not as limited as I thought, because like I spent a ton of time in Chapter 4 making damn sure I got like everything I could get.
Get all the spinels.
Like trying to make sure I don't miss a Clockwork Castellan.
Yes.
Make sure I get every optional treasure.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. Like now I have like 100,000 money.
Do you have as many briefcase upgrades as they'd give you?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
So I think you can probably just kind of play the game and not necessarily try to get absolutely everything.
Make room for that rocket launcher.
I have not bought that.
Just keep room for it.
I have enough to buy it right now, but I just can't commit.
It takes up so much room.
80,000, yes, and it's one shot. Like,
just save it. See, I think there's I don't know how they've changed. We'll see. So you're not inside the castle yet?
I'm headed there.
Okay.
After I got Ashley.
That is Resident Evil 4 out now. Resident Evil 4, obviously the remake of Resident Evil 4. That is currently out, and Redfall, for better or worse, currently out. $70. Do you think that game goes on sale on the PC or on Xbox? Even though it's
the
on
earliest
Game Pass?
convenience.
Yeah, I wonder. I'm gonna say one piece of DLC for that, and maybe a new character. Maybe they add in.
Oh,
maybe they
that's
turn
right.
it around.
I believe there are 2 more characters coming.
Is there a season pass for that game? I think there
Yes.
might be. Okay.
Yes.
Maybe that game turns around. It could be a fantastic success story. There are games that have definitely come out, especially even from Microsoft's and.
Oh, it's not
publisher
impossible.
end. Yeah,
It's just improbable.
it's a bummer because games that rely on multiplayer with a poor impression are I think tougher to pull ahead on.
Oh, definitely.
Because especially if you're not keeping your progress, that's such a bummer. All right, so we talked about Star Wars Jedi Survivor. We talked about Golden Idol Mysteries, Spider of Lanka, Tape to Tape, Touch Type Tail, Strategic Typing, Redfall, and Resident Evil 4. Boy, the alliteration on this one is it's killer.
Off the charts.
We are going to take a quick break, and we're going to... Yeah?
Sorry, I'm going to jump in real quick. I did look up what the Redfall Bite Back Edition comes with. It is a hero pass with 2 future heroes coming. But that just makes me remember that when you change heroes in that game, you start the whole game over.
Oh, right.
So what do they intend for people to do? If they play through the game and then wait for this hero pass to come out and get the new heroes, like you're just going to get the new heroes and start over?
I'm telling you, maybe the I don't know. I really don't know.
Let's move on.
I don't know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with some news. We're going to move on to some news right after this. This week's show is brought to you by ExpressVPN. Brad Shoemaker, Alex Navarro.
Yes, Vinny.
I feel like we're all familiar with a VPN and when you would want to use one.
Sometimes you need a network that is both virtual and private.
That's right. And you don't want to say roll your own. ExpressVPN is there to help you out. Say you are traveling and you want to catch up on your favorite shows and you're out of country and that show is blocked in a territory you're vacationing in. Maybe you could spin up a VPN, set your location back to your house, and catch up on your favorite show.
VPN, your virtual home away from home.
You know when you need a VPN.
Boy, do I.
You pay a lot. I pay a lot. We all pay a lot for our internet connection. Get your money's worth at expressvpn.com/Nextlander. That's expressvpn.com/Nextlander. Get 3 extra months of ExpressVPN for free. You know it when you gotta use one. Thanks, ExpressVPN. And we are back. And it is time for the news. Now, last week or the week before, or just put an infinity sign here. Last Infinity, we talked about Microsoft and the Activision Blizzard acquisition and how in the UK, was this 2 weeks ago or last week? I can't remember.
A couple weeks ago.
In the UK, it basically hit a big roadblock, that roadblock being a nah, we don't like it. In the UK, Brad Shoemaker.
The Competition and Markets Authority specifically said nah.
It's in the UK,
we don't have to,
but it does have wide-reaching implications.
Yeah, we don't have to belabor this one too much, but Reuters has reported that the EU is going to clear the deal. Has not happened yet, but sources are saying that May 15th is when the decision is expected to come down that the EU is going to let this thing proceed.
Which is, so I saw the story you linked, Brad, and I remember reading this. There was a lot more hay being made when the UK regulators said nah about what that means. did you see anything outside of maybe just this one here that says what this means for Microsoft in terms of appealing or changing for that UK deal?
I have no idea, but I would assume they're totally unrelated now that the UK has exited the EU.
Right.
I would guess there's no... I mean, I don't. Who knows? Maybe they can argue that by saying, "Hey, look," because a bunch of other countries have also approved the deal at this point. Maybe they can. Maybe that does give them some ammunition in court in the UK to say, "Hey, look at all these other entities have approved it." I don't know.
Some of the stuff we saw during the UK one, or some of the proposed things, were carve-outs for the UK, which sounded kind of rough. You know, like, "Hey, we won't do Activision stuff on Game Pass." Here was one of the proposed things that people were circulating. These are not officially announced things. I wonder if this lends more credence to some of those special exemptions or carve-outs for UK territories specifically.
Yeah, I don't know. I did see there were headlines going around that Microsoft has engaged the services of some hotshot lawyer with a strong track record of defeating regulatory challenges in EU courts.
Now I am some hotshot lawyer. I am a hotshot big city lawyer.
Yes, so they are getting serious there.
So we're still waiting. According to this article you linked from Reuters, Japan has already approved this. We're still waiting and see what happens in the US. And so it's UK now has said no. EU has said
so it's going to
allegedly
say
going
yes.
to say yes.
Yeah.
Japan
Some number
yes.
of I kind of lost track, but some number of other countries have all approved it as well.
Okay.
So I think it's really just the UK and provisionally here right now.
Interesting. So we'll find out more about that. Like I said, I'm sure this will be back up in the news as it's ongoing. It sounds like they will probably miss their summer deadline either way and need an extension.
I mean,
seems that way.
If there's one thing we can all, we've learned over the last several years is that when the UK tries to stand on its own, things always go great.
Well, they've been pretty...
Those carve-outs always seem to work out for them just fine.
Their regulations, let's say, in terms of having what I feel like is maybe a more... what is the word I'm looking for? Heavier thumb on the regulatory stuff for the internet does have ripples and implications.
I'm not saying that their decision won't matter. It does create a real impediment.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was, or like I said last time, it was the UK CMA that killed the NVIDIA ARM deal, which was in itself a massive acquisition.
Yeah, so it
although
does have implications.
That one was maybe even less defensible than this one.
That's the thing, is that I think the legal standing from this UK thing feels a little bit more of a stretch than what they were talking about in that NVIDIA deal.
I mean, in that case, NVIDIA was one of many licensees of ARM, most of the other licensees being direct competitors of theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if they then take over the licensor and are in a position to deny licenses to their competitors, I mean, actually, it's really not that different than the Microsoft situation where they will be in a position to, whatever, we've talked about it many times, deny Call of Duty to Sony, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, that's just a little quick update on where things are at.
Yeah, but that's not the only bit of Microsoft news here. You have plucked out of the news cycle some Phil Spencer out there talking about Redfall, talking about Microsoft in general. Brad, what is Phil out there saying?
He went on kind of funny the day, not the day after Redfall shipped. It was like right around where the Redfall embargo happened. Maybe
within a matter of days.
Maybe it might have been the day after it shipped, actually. Like pretty hat in hand about the reception of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And as he always is, like very much is of the like, yep, that's on us. It's, it's always disappointing when things come in below where you thought they would. But he also got into quite a bit of real talk about Xbox's position in the market. And flat out said, we're not in the business of out-consoling Sony or out-consoling Nintendo, which, I mean, whatever, it's not exactly news. Like, it's been obvious since Game Pass that they've been trying to pursue a kind of third way here.
Yeah, and
in the business, because what else are they going to do at this point? But it was interesting to see him get pretty get pretty specific about their failures, and specifically something I really hadn't considered. Point to the fact that losing the last generation with the Xbox One was about the worst thing they could have done, because that was the generation when everybody really truly entrenched digitally on consoles. You know, like
in an ecosystem, right?
I mean, there were plenty of digital transactions on the 360 with mostly XBLA stuff, and toward the end, bigger retail games. But that was the first generation where every console was just selling everything digitally right off the bat, right? So there's a lot of quotes out there from him you can go read. Like, there's no one that I would really point to here. Other than the other one is, there's no world where Starfield is an 11 out of 10 and people start selling their PS5.
I thought
like
that was really interesting.
Like his message is basically saying, like, hey, it's not enough for us to just make great games, although I think he is kind of underselling the ability to bolster your brand of great games. But I mean, I think he's not entirely wrong here, that even if they're shipping first party banger after banger, you know, people are pretty invested in the consoles they're invested in at this point.
So I think there's a couple of interesting things there. I thought this was a really interesting bit, or the interesting thing about it too. Before I say that, I will say, you know, Phil Spencer from Microsoft, they are actively trying to position themselves as not a market leader in a lot of these cases, especially the UK. And they're saying, hey, Sony and PlayStation already have a bigger advantage than we do in a lot of these marketplaces. This is to avoid, or I think to make their case that this acquisition of Activision is not going to be a monopoly. So that being said, that's on brand right now for Microsoft.
Yes. On some level, this is not that different than those pie charts they were parading around a few months ago of, like, look how big the PlayStation's global market share is compared to our tiny slice. We're number 3. We're number 3.
or even the Game Pass is a money loser. You know, like those things. Yeah. So
and the Starfield thing specifically is very pointed, as if to say, hey, look at our last multi-billion-dollar acquisition. Even the best game coming out of that acquisition is not going to move the needle for us. What could another one hurt?
Will not drive these other companies out of business. It's if you take it as in the most cynical, or maybe let's just say maybe pragmatic way of these things. That is a really good point, Brad, of him saying our last acquisition isn't going to make people just give up a PlayStation, not going to drive you out of business. So that being said, the thing about them, which is a real thing, losing that Xbox One generation to PlayStation and market share, let's say. I mean, the Wii U kind of ate a lot of people's lunch there too. Or the Wii, not the Wii U.
Definitely not the Wii U.
Not the Wii U. Is interesting because you could, previously to that, in a more physically based gaming environment, take your console and your games, go to a GameStop, get some trade-in value for that, and switch generations. You cannot do that now. You are sunk cost in on digital games in a way that you never were explicitly. I wasn't a big used game salesperson, but I know a lot of people who were. They could take their stack of games they bought that generation. And there was also a bigger, and we're going back a little bit of ways here, game rental market where you didn't own necessarily these things. The rental market, I think, has dried up in favor of digital buys. You have DLC and you have add-ons for games that are not cross-platform, that are only in your marketplace. So even if you wanted to switch and you're a huge fan of X game on the Xbox and you want to switch to PlayStation, if you buy that game, you might not get your progress or DLC or any of that other stuff that comes with you. That's huge. Like, Brad, we just talked about Redfall, right? And, like, you know, losing your progress. Who the hell is going to want to start over after putting hundreds of hours in live service games if you go to another console and don't take that progress with you? So it's a really interesting point to be made that it's not necessarily the loyalty to a PlayStation or Xbox brand, but it's the investment you've made in these very specific and kind of walled off ecosystems sometimes that are going to keep you in there. And I think he's got a really good point there that you're probably more likely to add an Xbox in than to trade out from that ecosystem. So
You're right, and the thing is, the stuff, like, again, I'm very much of the opinion that while I do think Phil is generally a pretty straight shooter and is generally pretty honest in a way that, other gaming CEOs tend not to be, or at least is open in a way that other gaming CEOs tend not to be, I do think a lot of this really is just him kind of trying to seed as much as he can the notion that, like, we are not in a market leader position, we are poor widow Microsoft, and it's like, okay, that's fine, you have to do this, but in a situation like this where he's talking about, like, Redfall, and he's talking about the fact that that game came out and it, in a very poor state, that doesn't do anything for anyone, really, other than to just kind of bolster your image as a guy who shoots straight. Like, coming in and say, hey, this game we just put out is not reviewing well, it wasn't in the state that we wanted it to be in. How long ago was that point, that question Jeff posed to Phil on the E3 couch of what's it going to take for busted games to stop shipping?
Yeah, I mean, probably about 6 or 7 studio acquisitions ago.
Right.
So
yeah, I mean, it has been a while. I mean, I will say, even as someone who was recently burned by Redfall, I mean, it is definitely not Master Chief Collection broken.
No, it's not. But it is not in a good shape. And the thing is, ultimately, there are people at the top, Phil is one of them, who makes the decisions to say this game has to come out on this date. So at a certain point, it's kind of up to him to say, this game is shippable, get it out there. And when it doesn't perform, yes, it's nice to see him, like, at least admit to that, but what does that actually do for anyone? It doesn't do anything for Arcane, because it just makes them say, like, oh, even the people at the top don't think this game works the way it's supposed to.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if a game like Redfall is at the tier where it ends up becoming somewhat sacrificial for the bigger games like Starfield getting delayed over and over, like in a world where Starfield actually did ship. I started to say on time, but even last November was not on time. It was just the most recent delay since, or before this one. Right. But like, if Starfield had come out, maybe this game would not have gotten shoved out when it did, because they would already have something big out there that people were still playing, right? So like, they're trying to keep a release slate up, and when they can't seem to ship stuff when they think they're going to, I wonder if other games end up being the victim of that. I don't know.
I think that, in a case like Redfall, if you really are in a position where you just think, another 6-month delay isn't going to fix this thing, we'd have to basically start over from a sequel perspective if we were going to do anything really meaningful to this, then sure, fine, put it out the door. But, I think that's kind of the thing I would rather he owned up to, is saying, like, look, we had very specific reasons why this game had to come out at this time. Maybe he doesn't want to share those because they're very specific business reasons that, that aren't comfortable to share in that way. But I think when he goes out there and he kind of does this little apology tour thing, it just doesn't do a lot for me, because, yeah, that's the whole persona you have kind of crafted for yourself here. And all it really does is just kind of reinforce the belief that the games you are putting out of your first-party studios are not up to snuff.
I think he did. There is more to this interview.
I watched the whole thing.
Yeah, so like he does go into a little bit of like, this was the vision for Redfall and the disappointment with the mock reviews and some of those things where maybe just the fun that they thought was there was not there. But I agree with you, Alex. I think there's only so much you can say in terms of like, we went wrong. Mm-hmm. We're going to look at it. You guys, Microsoft is not a small publisher. No. They're huge. They are, like, my Xbox games might not be the biggest kid on the block, but like Microsoft is gigantic. And I know that doesn't equate. That's not apples to apples, but they have a lot of money. They have been buying studios. They have a lot of people that work for them now that make games. So,
and it's also not like they've never been successful. The Xbox 360 was the biggest console of its generation. It has one of the most celebrated libraries of any console anywhere. Like, yes, they were a little weird out of the gate with that first Xbox, but it was still a fairly successful platform, at least in the US and in Europe. Like, they have done good things and, like, been successful in video games. So I think there's a certain amount of just like, okay, you had a bad generation. You kind of recovered toward the end, not all the way, but you kind of recovered. I don't know how many excuses they can really continue to make at a certain point, because you clearly have a talent pool. You clearly know what the problems were with last generation. I just don't think I want to hear more excuses from them about why things aren't working out the way they're supposed to.
There's also, in this part of the conversation that Phil is talking, the extracted piece we have here, he does go on to say, and this might be steering closer to kind of supporting their argument on the acquisition side, which is they are not, I think, Brad, you mentioned this exact quote before, not going to out-console Sony and Nintendo. They are looking to get, I'm paraphrasing here, but they want to put developers' works on as many screens as possible, right? They want their I think they said something like, if you're not going in on phones, you're basically a lost cause, because like it's like everybody's got a phone. It's 90% market share.
Your eyes are glued to that thing for at least a certain percentage of the day, no matter what.
Yeah, and that goes back to reinforcing, or at least it works well with the statements Phil has said before of like, hey, we're kind of in this for King. Like we kind of want mobile development for Activision. We want, that's what we're going in for. It's not Call of Duty. We want to leapfrog more into mobile stuff.
Okay, but let's be real here. This isn't like, Giant Bomb just got thrown in with, that whatever purchase just happened here. Like, we just got Activision. We have Call of Duty. What do we do with this? Like, that's not what that is.
Should we keep that franchise going? I don't know. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yes. No. But I'm just saying, in terms of the kind of tone of what Phil is saying here, is basically we're looking to make, outside of the console, we're looking to make a broader. We've lost that battle, but the war is going to be waged on all of these different screens.
Right.
We may have lost the set-top box here, but they are putting tons of eggs in their streaming, in their other places. I mean, that's kind of what the UK regulator said too. Right. Is like, hey, you're going to be a market leader in this place on the streaming side of things. That's what that's what the UK regulators said. We're worried about that stuff. So we'll see. Like, again, you have to take some of it with a grain of salt, because there is active merging going on, litigation happening. Mm-hmm. There is a lot going on here. As much as it seems like, and I like the way Phil presents when he's talking about this stuff, but as much as it comes off as he's talking from the hip, I can't believe he is.
No,
like this
there's a calculation there, 100%. And I do think he is more, forward, like straightforward than a lot of the way other game executives talk. I don't doubt his genuineness in terms of like his love of games and his desire to have Microsoft and Xbox be a platform where games can thrive and, they can do interesting work. It's just that I think that a lot of that shine has just kind of been lost for me in this generation, where it feels like, despite them making major inroads and making major recovery steps at the end of last generation, it still feels like they wandered into this one just wholly unprepared in a way that just doesn't feel justified.
I think the statement that an 11 out of 10 Starfield isn't going to get anybody to basically jump to the Xbox.
PlayStation.
Sorry.
PlayStation. Or Xbox.
Yeah,
Xbox. I misheard.
Yeah, isn't going to jump to the... I'm going to say this. A 2 out of 10 Starfield isn't going to make anybody want their Xbox anymore.
Yeah.
Like, putting out a bad game isn't going to help it'll damage your brand. So, we'll see what happens with all of this stuff. There's tons more that's going to be said on this. I look at all of this stuff as supporting the acquisition at this point. It's hard not to.
Oh, yeah. I assume every single thing he does in public now is in some way meant to reinforce their desire to get this deal done.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah.
Just got to take it with some salt. That deal is going to be in the news for a long time.
I'm being critical because I do like Phil. This is not a Jim Ryan situation where there just isn't anything nice for me to say about the guy,
Yeah.
Fair.
Look, if you got to get your corporate speak in there, he does it in a way that is palatable.
He feels like a human being, which is, more than you can say about a lot of other game executives.
And I agree with you, Alex. And we've said this before. I think he genuinely loves games, or at least comes across as somebody who genuinely loves this industry, and is not just somebody who got in it for the money. Or to be
totally. Like obviously, is everything he does in service of Microsoft's strategic priorities, of course, or he would not keep his job. But I mean, he was a programmer. Like he worked in the trenches making games before he got to this point. You have to you have to have some enduring love of the medium to make it that long.
Yeah.
And we, Brad and Alex and I have seen people who have slid into higher up positions that have no love for the thing. They're just business people, and that sucks.
Yes.
And so having somebody in there that at least has come up through it and knows the industry, and it's kind of nice to see.
Yeah.
Switching gears to the PlayStation, the thing, the taboo, the PlayStation VR 2. Will it work on PC?
Here, I'm just going to lay this out.
Do it.
Because some of these tweets have now been deleted.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
Ivory, the developer who got the original PlayStation VR working on PCs, also has done a bunch of weird adapting VR to phones and all kinds of other stuff.
Ivory. I didn't even see it this whole time I was reading this article.
Spelled IVRY.
Okay. Yeah.
IVRY_VR on Twitter is the account. This is the person who, again, got the first PSVR up and running on PC and is most likely to do so with the second PSVR. But we've talked before about them saying, hey, it's going to take years if it ever works at all, which is extremely not a guarantee. They have broken the initial encryption on the headset, which I think we talked about last time. Like, if you can't do that, there's nothing else going to happen. Like, it's a complete non-starter because you can't even get the two devices to talk to each other if they can't authenticate with each other.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a thing that was like, this is either going to happen or it's not. It happened, and they seemed pretty excited about it, and somebody asked them how they did it. I'm not at liberty to discuss that.
Oh.
I have no idea what work took place or what information was exchanged there to make this work. But they did post on Twitter that they had gotten through the initial authentication, which is a pretty exciting step toward. But again, there are multiple things here. Again, first of all, they immediately went back to saying, like, oh my God, this is such a pain in the ass. There's so many other things that aren't working. Fuck this.
Yes.
The stuff that got deleted that I didn't mention because it keeps changing day by day is like, this happened and people were excited, and then this person started saying, like, hey, here's a PayPal link if you want to support my development efforts. Like, this is kind of expensive and a lot of work. And then a day or two after that, I went back and looked at their feed, and they were like, I'm walking away from this project.
Oh.
People are being extremely shitty about this.
Oh, man.
This is not worth it. I might come back to this later, but for now, I'm done.
Huh.
And I was like, well, that was quick. Okay, never mind. And then I checked again this morning. That was like 2 days ago. And again, as of this morning, those tweets have been deleted, and now they're back to work on it again.
Okay, so back, no PayPal link, no, I'm leaving, and then
they pivoted to saying, hey, if you want to support this, go buy the first version of this that's up on Steam.
I see.
Like, I will consider you buying the previous product as support of the new product, and you'll get a discount on the new one.
What
if it comes out?
I never saw the original one on Steam. Is it bundled as not specifically PlayStation VR support on Steam? I feel like that would be tough. Is it just basically a driver pack for
Ivory driver for Steam VR is what it's called on Steam.
Okay.
User iPhone, Android, Gear VR, Oculus Mobile, or Sony PlayStation VR headset for your PC.
Yeah, so I'll reiterate what you just said there, because my hopes were very high and then kind of brought back down to earth reading this story. It seems extremely hard to get the rest of this working, and I think this article here even says it's going to be basically a wait to see if these drivers ever come along, or if Sony just releases their own drivers for the PC. That's how long this might take to kind of come to fruition. So
yeah, I am guessing that probably will never happen, just because I can't imagine they're making enough. If they're making profit on the headset, I can't imagine it's enough of a margin to justify
development cost,
unless they start porting a bunch of VR games to PC as well, which I don't see happening. But
look, I think that PlayStation VR, I don't have a lot of experience with VR, but I think that headset's pretty good, and it's
very nice. Yeah, I would love to play Half-Life Alyx on it.
Yeah, so if you could get support, I mean, maybe those marketplaces are closed down and they don't want that headset on there, but if you can get support to get the headset on those marketplaces, I think it's competitively priced to move for people who want to buy it just for their PC and not even for their PlayStation 5.
Yes.
Still very expensive, but
specs are
compared to other
but
stuff.
by PC headset standards for what you're getting, it's super cheap. I mean, again, not cheap in an absolute sense, but the specs of it against the price compared to the specs and price of other stuff in that space, it is probably the best deal going, or would be.
Yeah, so I don't know what those marketplaces look like in terms of, do you have to strike a deal with Steam or with the Oculus Store to have official support for your thing on there? Because those marketplaces also have their official product.
Yeah, I mean, they've sold their PC games so far just through Steam, so they seem okay at least for now with doing that.
Well, I mean the headset support. Like does Oculus and Steam work natively together in the storefront?
No.
And does Valve's headset work natively in the Oculus Store?
I don't think so.
So that's my thing. Is like
the efforts have been much more around getting Oculus games working with Steam VR hardware and not the reverse.
Okay.
I think it's much easier to play. I can't remember actually. I've lost track. There are all kinds of homebrew projects to get one headset to work with the other's games and so forth.
So official support for cross-pollinating the VR landscape has not gone over well so far, right? Like there's still kind of siloed marketplaces.
Valve would be happy with everything being open, I think. It's much more, Oculus is the one that is very much funding and keeping content exclusive.
Because they're the much smaller fish in that place, driving people into their store?
Well, I mean, they're Facebook, so...
That's true. I'm sorry, Meta, please.
But I mean, I don't know what that business looks like.
Yeah,
I don't think the Oculus business is some massive growth driver or anything.
I guess the takeaway is great first steps. Don't hold your breath for PlayStation 2 VR support or PlayStation VR 2 support.
Like I said, even as of like today or yesterday, they literally said, "Hey, if you own the previous product, you'll get a discount on the new one if it is ever released."
Gotcha,
is what they say. So, but the bigger thing was like they seem to have abandoned it until right before this podcast, and I saw they had picked it back up again.
Interesting,
but the dream is not dead, and some progress has been made.
Maybe someday. Speaking of the dream. Alex Navarro, we did our dream casting at some point for Mortal Kombat. When we did Mortal Kombat movie for the Mortal Kombat movie for the Watchcast. We talked about casting. I think we even may have talked about who would play a Johnny Cage in a modern one. But
I don't remember who we said. So
I don't remember who we said either.
I wish I could remember. There is a martial artist. Like a film martial artist that people were kind of pushing as who should be Johnny Cage. I believe that's him. Because I looked the guy up and I was like, oh wow, that guy is kind of the spitting image of what you think Johnny Cage looks like almost.
He totally is. He's a British actor and martial artist who has done a lot of, he's mostly done a lot of, I'm going to say smaller and direct-to-streaming martial art movies, but he's like very good in them. And some of them are actually quite good. He's in the new John Wick.
Okay. That must be why people were talking about him. But he kind of has that manicured look of a film star that could very much pass for a Johnny Cage.
Absolutely.
Alex, the reason we're talking about this is because it sounds like we have someone, at least in final talks, for Johnny Cage. And who might that someone be?
The one, the only, the one dread there is, Karl Urban.
I can see it.
I don't know, man.
I can see it.
I think from a personality standpoint, he can totally do it. Karl Urban has way more range than I think people give him credit for. They cast him in a lot of very gruff roles, but I think he can totally be like a pretty slick guy. It's just he's not what I picture when I look at him.
That's what it is. He's a fantastic actor, don't get me wrong, but this makes it seem like they're probably going to lean even harder into the like old washed up Johnny Cage than the most recent games do. I don't know. Maybe Karl Urban is going to start lifting heavy.
They usually do for movies like this.
Yeah, but like
he's pretty beefy.
Yeah, sure. You look at this side by side in this story from the wrap I put in here, like the screenshot of like Johnny Cage is graying around the temples in MK11. Like he is kind of older and not. He's very much past his prime, is what they've been doing with that character. So maybe that's kind of what they're playing on here, and in which case, like, that probably makes a lot more sense. It's weird, though, because, like, if you asked me who should Karl Urban play in a Mortal Kombat, like, it's Kano.
Oh, boy. Yes, you're
like,
100%
you know,
right.
Like, 1,000%, except that the Kano they already have, like, kind of stole that movie.
Yeah.
Like, that actor was probably the best thing in that movie.
It was like him, and it was the interplay between Sanada and Joe Taslim for the Sub-Zero, like, Scorpion stuff. Everything else was kind of...
But as just an entertaining actor to watch doing what they're doing, like that, the Kano they have is great already. Anyway, whatever, this could be fun.
You know, I'm looking up Karl Urban when he was McCoy in that Star Trek reboot. And you know, granted, that's 15 years ago at this point.
It was 2009 was the first one.
Yeah,
okay.
Actually, almost, yeah.
So, I mean, you could see it there, you know, like he's clean cut, you know, he's not the boys Karl Urban, which is kind of a mess, intentionally a mess of a character with the beard and the hair. You could see it.
It's like some of this is definitely probably just watching too much Billy Butcher.
Definitely.
Or like that persona has kind of taken over Karl Urban.
Yes.
To some degree.
And like, I don't remember his, when he was McCoy, his American accent being bad or anything.
It's fine.
It's fine. Okay.
No, he does a perfectly solid accent. It's just, I don't know. It's just not who I would have gone to first.
Especially because like the whole vibe of that first, I say first, I mean, it's kind of a reboot.
Yeah.
The first in this new timeline, like all of the characters are kind of their archetypal arcade versions.
You
know, like everybody is kind of straight out of MK2, MK3. And so that's kind of what you expect out of a Johnny Cage is a Johnny Cage in his prime kind of thing.
Not the
here.
Multiverse version.
But it seems like that might not be the direction they're going to go. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll see. Does this movie have a date on it?
No, I don't think so.
I mean, if they were still in the casting stage, they probably haven't even gotten that far along yet.
Okay. This is don't look.
Remember, that was a pandemic movie, so I imagine they are, still chugging along here.
Right. All right. Brad, you threw this in here. The end of an era. You threw this Sum 41 news in, and I had no idea who Sum 41 was until I went. You also thank you for putting in this link to their soundtrack stuff, and I didn't realize it until I got in, and I didn't even realize the name of the song was called Fat Lip, and I realized that song might be the soundtrack to my life. Like,
wait, okay.
That song.
What's going on in your life, man?
Well, I just mean that song is so recognizable for so many games and so long.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I heard that song and I was like, immediately pockets of my brain were unfolding in ways that were like, oh my God, like, I think I owe this person money, or I should talk to this person. Like, spools were unraveling in my head of like visions were happening of I was here when this song was playing. I lived in this apartment. I had this console. I mean, this Fat Lip seems to have spanned 25 years of like video game.
It was a very popular song, Vinny.
And this whole time I think I thought it was an Offspring song. So
wow.
Yeah.
It's because that's how it was named when you downloaded it from Kazaa, right?
Yeah, right. Possibly, yes. So Brad, why are we talking about?
I'm letting Alex take this one.
Oh, okay.
He's definitely got more to say about this than I do.
After a career that I'm going to say has somehow managed to span about 25 years, Sum 41 is calling it quits. They announced on social media that they are breaking up finally. And if you're already making the joke, they were still together. Guess what? Everyone on the internet already beat you to it. That said, two things about Sum 41 here. One, finally we get to talk about a band that I actually opened for one time.
Okay.
This was before they got popular. This was in like the late 90s. They were playing some bar in Sacramento that I remember we opened for them at, and they were very nice guys. That's all I really remember about it. The other thing is that if they aren't the winner, and they probably aren't, but they might be one of the most licensed bands in all of video game history.
That is 100% the reason that I put this in here, is that's why I went and found that wiki page. I was just like, dude, they must have been in every extreme sports and probably regular sports game for like 8 or 10 years.
I'd say in the years between 2001 and 2010, that was definitely like, oh, you're just in fucking everything.
So I was not familiar with the provenance of these songs. Now knowing they come from Sum 41 and not Offspring, but boy, they are of a time, huh? I was watching some of their videos. Pop punk. Yeah, they are like right there, spiky. So they must be. Are they second wave Green Day kind of? Like Green Day got very big, and then
sort of.
I kind of put them as like a post Blink 182, and that's not just because they also have a number in them, but like they had the same kind of more specifically bratty energy that I feel like
for sure
Blink had.
So less punk, more.
I mean, it was still punk. Like it was, okay. But it was in that pop punk very squarely.
Okay, yeah. Watching those videos, it was like, oh my god, this part of the early 2000s. It's just I had forgotten about it. It's there. It's documented. There's a soundtrack to it. It's
literally
kind of amazing, and I'm glad we're pretty much past it.
If I may name some of the video games in which they appeared, and I'm going to name the non-Guitar Hero Rock Band ones because, well, duh, on that front. ESPN X Games Skateboarding, Dave Mirra Freestyle BMX 2, NHL 2002, Splashdown, Trans World Surf, MX 2002 featuring Ricky Carmichael, MVB Baseball 2003, Trans World Surf Next Wave, Summer Heat Beach Volleyball, NASCAR Thunder 2004, Backyard Thunder. Wrestling, Test Drive Eve of Destruction, NFL Street 2, Obscure, Full Auto 2 Battle Lines, Madden NFL 08, NBA 08, SingStar Pop Volume, it just keeps going.
Man.
Right, and then of course you get into the Guitar Heroes Rock Band,
Rocksmith.
Yes.
Wow, they were in Riders Republic.
Yes.
Remember that? Last year.
They're in Trials Rising.
Trials Rising.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Happy trails to Derek and the gang. I hope you all
it's a hell of a run.
Yeah, I looked up a picture of what Derek Whibley looks like now, and I was not prepared to see him plus 20 years.
We never are.
No. I hope your royalty checks are enough that you don't have to immediately reform as soon as you stop playing together.
Not saying he looks bad, but more just being reminded of the march of time is what I mean, you know? Just seeing people who in your mind are perpetually 19 be like in their 40s. I was like, no.
Right. Like, this is me. It's like this whole thing of like, you will forever be this kid with spiky hair running around doing cartwheels, not a
40-year-old with spiky hair.
I do feel like pop punk is one of those genres where the dudes who age into that era of still touring 20, 30 years after their heyday, it really has a hard time playing well because it's just, there's something about that genre in particular that is so teenage that I just, something about a 45-year-old guy singing songs still, like kind of sneering punk songs about how a girl doesn't like them. Yeah. It doesn't come off right.
Yeah.
Look, that's you get up there and you do it. They're professionals. God,
you do it until they stop paying you to do it.
Mm-hmm. I was watching their some of their music, and I can't remember what song it was, but they had this intro bit on one of them, which I actually found pretty funny, where they are in like a music producer's office, and the producer is telling them, like, hey, you got to change your name to the sum and drop all the numbers are done now. Blink 182 is done. Like, we're all post that, and it was a pretty good bit. It was a pretty funny bit. Maybe they're a funny band. I don't really know them that well.
They had a sense of humor. They definitely had a sense of humor. I will say that. They did not take themselves that seriously.
Popular?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that song, again, Fat Lip, as soon as I played it in that, like, it was like, oh my gosh, this is the song?
Yeah. So here's the thing is that, especially with Canadian bands, you kind of have to differentiate between popular and Canadian popular. They were popular.
Okay.
They weren't just winning Juno awards. Like they broke pretty big.
I did not realize they were Canadian pop punk.
Derek was married to, or at
Avril
least was in a
Lavigne.
long-term relationship with Avril Lavigne.
Yeah, they were married.
It's the most Canadian you could be.
Yeah. Well,
Unless
that is until she got with the Nickelback guy. That's the Canadian power couple right there.
Nickelback, huh?
Yeah.
Boy. I'd love to hear your Sum 41 stories. You could send them in to the emails at hold on, I've almost said emails at Nextlander. Is podcast at nextlander.com. Podcast at nextlander.com. What's your Sum 41 story from 20 odd years ago? I'm sure somebody listening out there has one.
If you have one from 5 years ago, you know what? We might want to hear that too.
Or yesterday. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
They're still doing a tour and a half.
Oh, they're finishing
before
up.
they break
Yeah.
up.
Okay.
They're going to finish this tour and then put out their final album and then do another tour in support of that and then break up.
Good on them.
At least they have a plan.
Send it to podcast at nextlander.com. We are not going to do emails this week. We are running this week on games here. A lot of games to talk about. We got a bunch of stuff going up, quote unquote. I'm going to say it. I'll say it on the site. We got a bunch of stuff you can check out. We are moving furiously through Sons of the Forest. I think we have one more stream. I know we keep saying that, but I think
this time for realsies.
For realsies. One more stream. We seem geared up. We seem in the right position to go. You can check out where we are. We stream that on Monday. We got the Watchcast with Trespass up on the Patreon. You can check that out. We're going to be recording in Judgment Night this week, so you can hear that next week over on the Patreon. Last week, we put up on Friday Never Been a Better Podcast with Austin, Abby, Bacalar, and Reichert all there joining us. A lot of talk about teeth. It's teeth, pooping, your normal Never Been a Better Podcast stuff. We got a grab bag coming up. Maybe we'll get into some of that. Sorry, Brad, refresh my memory. Touch Type Tail, strategic typing on the grab bag. And then Friday, we have a fun stream, but I'm pretty sure we're going to jump into some Zelda. We're going to do some Zelda on Friday. That's when the game releases. That's when we're going to all be playing it. So come join us on Friday to check out some of that early from the start Zelda stuff. You can go over to patreon.com/Nextlander to find those things like the Watchcast, Ramblecast, Never Been a Better Podcast. Find a tier that's right for you. Jump in there and start downloading all the other episodes. Like I said, we're at episode 100-ish here. Plenty of other episodes. Back catalog over on the Patreon. You can find it. The other thing you can find over on the Patreon is the Mysterious Benefactor tier.
Ooh, you put a little warble on that.
Yeah, Benefactor tier, which gets you a shout out on this here podcast. Alex Navarro, would you do the honors of reading off our Mysterious Benefactors for this week?
I guess I can do that. Our Mysterious Benefactors for this week are RRE, John Richardson, Vornak, Park, Kelly F., James Smith, Brian Lucier, Skywarp, John Hubbard, Sean Miller, Evan Cook, Mark Wilhelm, Jerry Lee, Gary Pejsky, Robert Fisher, John McInnes, Hashtag Bunny Crimes, Peter Reardon, Thomas Lynn, Jad Rita, Statics, Andrew Jackson, Razgriz2, Brian Murphy, Trevor and Adrian R., Randy Duax, Andrew Tiebkin, Alex Wu, It Me JP, Matt Clements Jr., Edward Chick, Andrew Slosky, Steve Lynn, Matthew Herrig, David Campos, Tyler Treese, and those are our Mysterious Benefactors.
Your cadence there threw me off. I was
trying to trip you up.
I was ready. I was prepared. Thanks, everybody, for supporting us over on the Patreon. Thanks to our Mysterious Benefactors and everyone who has gone over there. Thanks, everybody who has watched, listened, sent the good vibes, and participated over on our Discord. A lot of fun over there. Again, you can check out patreon.com/Nextlander for all of that information and fun stuff. Like we said, Zelda's coming out. I'm glad I got Jedi Survivor kind of off the plate for now. Feel like I've cleaned up a little bit to go head into Zelda. I'm very excited for that game. Expectations are not too high, or I think they're right where they need to be.
Look, we all know what Breath of the Wild was. I think now that we've seen kind of what they're doing with this one, I think we kind of know what we're getting ourselves into here. But I think that could be good.
They talked about dungeons.
Yeah,
dungeons in a Zelda game. Get at it.
On a started to say an Iwata Asks, which
they don't do those anymore.
RIP doesn't exist anymore, but it was something in that vein. I forget what it's called now. One of those Nintendo Talks kind of updates. Like they straight up said, "Hey, there are dungeons in this game."
Did you guys watch that commercial?
I did, with the guy on the bus.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah,
it was all right. Sad, little sad guy on the bus.
It's a little tugging at the heartstrings in a very cynical way, but I'm not immune to that shit. I'll be honest, though I will say the remix someone did with Mad World is maybe a little too perfect.
Yeah, for those who don't know, it's basically a just kind of like dreary shot of a guy. I assume he's going on his commute to work with a bunch of other people on a commute, and then finds some Tears of the Kingdom in his life at home. And I don't know, like he finds his escape hatch in a Nintendo Switch, and there's color.
How do you think that guy's marriage is going? Because
he doesn't seem unhappy. It just seemed like it's in the routine, It's in the routine. Hey, this guy somebody told him, look, did you like Zelda? I played some Zelda when I was a kid, and like, oh, you should get a Switch, and like, I'll try it, He's out there.
Oh, he's out there.
It's a weird commercial.
It's weird, but it's weird in a way that I at least appreciate. It's not just 20-somethings huddled around a table going, Zelda!
Yes, it's not a rooftop party with people playing Zelda and like dancing, so I'm into it. All right, find out more about Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom next week. I'm sure we'll have plenty to say.
Or and our stream on Friday.
And then you can catch us on Friday. Thank you, Brad Shoemaker. Thank you, Alex Navarro. We'll be back next week. See ya.